I'm so happy to be here this morning with you guys, and I really appreciated the invitation. I met Ndungu, I think last week when I attended Natalie's book launch at Safaricom. I've never known him before then, but that was an opportunity for me to meet this amazing man. And I listened to him speak, and I said, wow. You know, and after the Natalie's book launch, I've been trying to make efforts to meet not only Ndungu, but many other people who are in Natalie's book, and Mama Natalie has been very helpful with that. And that's why we are here today, courtesy of Mama Natalie, who extended an invitation to me to come and share with you my story and my life. Now, of course, my life my story is quite long, but I want to make it very short because of time. And I just want to mention the very touching, what I consider touching in my story. So my story dates back, you know, when I was 14 years, as the MC has rightly put it. When after going through my primary school, it was a struggle, of course, going through primary. And those days, school was not free. I'm sure you know that. Free primary just came in the other day. But those days, school was not free. And so, you know, mom and dad still had to look for money to pay for tuition, to pay for many other things. But they struggled. I come from a very humble family. My dad and mom were very, very poor at the time. And it was a struggle for them to even take me through, you know, primary school. And when I finished primary school, luckily they struggled. There was no help from anywhere. They struggled to get me through primary school. And just when I finished primary school, I got to a point I felt like, you know, that was the end. You know, that was the end of school for me. And in fact, together with my mom and dad, we started figuring out what next. What do I do? Because it was clear that I was not going to make it through secondary school. We could not just afford it. And so there were several suggestions that kept coming up. And one of them was, you know, how about you go? My dad had a friend of his. Of course, that's in Kibera. My dad had a friend who was making cars, who was a mechanic. And so he talked to his friend and they were like, that's good. You know, Thomas can come and spend his time at the garage and see how we make cars. You know, of course, the whole thing was for me to become a mechanic. And of course, I was okay with that. After all, there's nothing I was doing. So I was already making adjustments to, you know, I was already thinking of, you know, what kind of a mechanic I will make. And then there were other suggestions of what I could do. And just one morning, I was playing with my friends in the slum, somewhere in Kibera slum. And of course, with the reality that, you know, because all my friends were in school, they had gone to school. I'm the only one with a few friends who were left. And so I was playing in one of the streets in Kibera slum. And then as I was playing, I noticed this white old man that was, you know, taking a walk through the slum. And by the way, it was something very unusual, you know, meeting a Muzungu walking alone in the slums of Kibera at that time. And normally what kids would do when you see a Muzungu, I don't know if you have had that experience, but you know, the kids will always shout, Muzungu, Muzungu. I don't know how many of you have done that. You know, but it happens. And by the way, how many of you know Kibera slum or have ever been to Kibera slum? So we have quite a number of people who've been to Kibera slum. That's great. So, you know, when a Muzungu is passing in the slum, and not only in the slum, I've seen it in other places as well, little kids will always come out and shouting, Muzungu, Muzungu. So that's exactly what I did when I was only 14. And so this white man, you know, noticed my shouting, and he stopped and invited me, you know, called me towards where he was standing. And so when I went to him, at that time, my English was very poor, extremely poor. So I went to him and he started asking me questions, about my family, about my life. And I was very limited in what I could say because of the language. But then this man did not just want to let me go. So he got so much interested in me and he requested me to take him on a tour of the slum. So we started walking. And for me at that time, walking with a Muzungu in the slum, it was something, very prestigious, yeah? Walking next to a Muzungu, and talking, even though I was talking a lot of nothing, but, just, just walking with him and taking a tour of the slum, but for some reason, we were able to click with this guy, even though I was speaking my broken English, for some reason, he was able to understand what I was saying. So as we walked through the little paths in the slum, and of course, I knew the slum very well that time. So just when we were about to finish our tour, he asked me a question, why are you not in school, by the way? And, all your friends are in school. Sorry, my... that's the time I told him, well, I'm not in school because my parents cannot afford it, in my broken English. And then he stopped and wondered, how much does it cost to be in school, to be in a secondary school? I didn't know because in my family, there was none in my family that had gone through high school. I have an older sister who left school when she was only in standard 6. And so I had no idea what it cost to go through high school. And then this guy, he just didn't want to give up on me. He told me, how about you go and find out? I don't know why he never suggested that I take him home, and meet my parents. But what he told me, go and find out what it would cost, to get you into school. And so at the end of the tour, we left each other. I ran back home and I mentioned, I started narrating to my parents what had happened. My encounter with this old man, and my parents, especially my mom, was like, hiyo ni mambo tumezoea, she never took me serious. So I kept telling her, Mom, I met this man and he wants to know how much it will cost to get me in school. And, quite a number of times he kept shutting me down and asking me, where are you going to meet him? That was just, there are so many Muzungus that come to, just tour the slum. And the mentality in the minds of people, of course, in Kibera is, there are Wazungus who come and the only thing they come is for tourism, just to see how people live their lives. And back they go, take nice pictures, they go back home and show it, floss around. They just came from the slum. But this guy, for some reason, we never had any picture. In fact, he was not taking any photos. And so I told Mom, well, even though you don't believe it, just help me get what it will cost for me to be in school. And so in that evening, my mom decided to go to talk to her friends, our neighbors, and get to understand how much it would cost to educate one through high school. And when she came back home, she came with a fee structure of a school. By the way, I never ended up in that school. This fee structure was just to give us an idea of how much it costs, what it cost to go through 1 year of school. So when she got this, the following day in the morning, together with a friend of mine, we set off to meet this old man. He was very old, by the way, was even struggling to walk. So when I got to the hotel where the address where he had given, not very far from the slum, I met him at the reception and handed him the piece of paper that I had, which had, the cost of secondary school in that particular school that year. So when I gave it to him, he looked at it. I saw him making calculations and went to his room as I waited at the reception. And when this man came out, he came holding an envelope. That was a white envelope, if I remember very well. And inside that envelope was money that was enough to not only sponsor my 1 year of school, but my 4 years of high school. And that's how my life changed. That completely changed. My life completely changed, and I took this envelope with a lot of pride, said thank you to the man, Of course, he was flying out the same day. I remember he was flying out at midday. So I went back home running together with my friend following at the back until we got home, and I gave this envelope. My dad was home at that time. I gave the white envelope to him, and when he looked inside the envelope, he did not believe it. And so, you know, I got to a point I started teasing my mom. You see, you were telling me, you know, to forget about it. Now see, I have money to take me to school. And from that point, we started the journey of getting me into a school. So I ended up in a school somewhere in Kakamega. It's not a very big or well-known school, but that's what we could find at the time. Because I was late, most of the schools, most of the good schools could not take me at that time because I was already late. And so what my parents did, and I respect my parents for that, wazazi, what always counts is honesty and being faithful. And that's what my dad and mom did at the time. Even though they were very poor, they could not afford even a meal those days. They could not even afford to pay our house rent. We were in arrears. But they took that white envelope. The amount of money they took out of it was to buy my school uniform and some of the school you know, items that I was required to take with me. And the rest of the money, they took it and paid all of it to the school. And that's how I managed to go my 4 years, through my 4 years of high school without paying anything, because all my fees was paid. Now, I went through high school, and when I finished high school, by the time I was finishing, my parents had you know, long decided to go back to the village back in Kisumu. And so they made that decision when I was actually in Form 3. But when I finished Form 4, I never went back to join them in the village, because there was nothing I was going to do there. So I still continued living in Kibera, but of course living with friends, living with relatives. But when I finished Form 4, the first thing I decided to do was to get myself out of the slum, because it is very difficult growing up in Kibera. For those who've been there, you know what I mean. I'm talking about. You know, there's lots of negative influence in Kibera. There's a lot of abuse, you know, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and all these sorts of things. And I said, this is not a place I want to continue living in. Even though I didn't have any source of income then, again, I joined with a friend of mine just immediately after finishing high school, and we decided to, you know, to start collecting firewood and scrap metal. And getting some little money, we decided to rent a very small room up somewhere in Ngong Road, a place called Rescos. So that's where we went and rented our first room outside Kibera slum. Now, after all these, later on, you know, I met again a very good well-wishers who offered to sponsor my university education. And then later on, an opportunity presented itself for me to give back. Now, by the way, going back to this man who helped me, this guy helped me so much, but I never even got to know his name. So even now, as we speak, I don't know what his name is. I don't know whether he lives or he still lives or he's dead. But all I know is that he gave me a gift that I'm today looking at myself, and I am so proud of myself. I'm also very proud of him, and I'm always telling myself, I wish I could meet this man. I wish he could come back to Kenya and just meet me and see the person that he sponsored. He probably doesn't even remember that he sponsored somebody. That is if he's still alive. You guys are lucky because you are able to meet Ndungu and you know, interact with him. But for me, I've never been able to meet this person that changed my life. Now, later on, I decided the best way to say thank you to this man who helped me, who got me, I would say got me out of poverty, is to do the same for another person. And even though I've never met him, even though, I mean, I only met him when the last time when he handed me the envelope, but I decided I was going to do something that will make him proud even though he doesn't know it. And so when an opportunity presented itself, I decided to start an organization that is called Mirror of Hope. Mirror of Hope is a community-based organization in Kibera that is empowering vulnerable children and women. Now, we sponsor the education of children through high school and, of course, university. And we are really targeting those bright but very needy students. Those are the ones we get into sponsorship. And then I also realized that the best way to help a society, because seeing how my mom struggled when I was growing up, I said another thing I can do to make sure that we don't have many kids ending up to be the person I was so many years ago. The best thing to do is to empower a woman. And that's how I started this, the Women Empowerment Program within the Mirror of Hope. And currently we are empowering a group of 30 women, training them on business skills and empowering them to go out and run their own businesses. And they're doing very well, by the way. The 30 women we are empowering are all able to raise money enough to pay for the education of their children. So their children are not part of the kids we are sponsoring. But we have these 97 young boys and girls that we are sponsoring through secondary school and through university. 7 of them are currently in university. Our first graduate, Dennis, very bright. We started sponsoring him right from the time we started the Mirror of Hope. And at the end of Form 4, he scored a grade of A plain and now doing an engineering at JQuat. And whenever you talk to Dennis, he will always tell you that I want to do this so that I can get my family and myself out of the slum and also go out and impact the lives of other young people like me. And so that's what we are doing at Mirror of Hope. And that's why when I got to hear of what Ndungu and the Affecto Foundation is doing, I said, wow, that is something I would like to identify myself with. And currently, the kind of work I do is, basically going out, traveling out around the world to share the story of Mirror of Hope and to share the story of the kids and the women that we are supporting. And every year you'll find me going to different countries to talk about our stories of change. Now, when I was 14 years, when I was thinking about becoming a mechanic, of course, I never imagined that one day I would be sitting in a plane, to go out and, share my story and share the stories of the so many kids that we are sponsoring. But everything is possible if you put your head to it. I mean, you've had very great speakers, this morning. And everyone is telling you that hard work pays. You just have to believe in yourself. I believed in myself, and that's why I do what I do today. And I believe that, even though you are born in poverty, you are not made to forever live in poverty. You can actually get yourself out there and be the person that everyone else will admire and everyone else will want to identify with. And that's why I'm so happy doing what I do. We are based in Adams Arcade, and every school holiday we have our students coming. We have what we call a holiday program. So our students will always come there and we teach them different life skills, leadership and resilience. And we have different sorts of people, coming to talk to them, to share with them their stories. And I'm telling you, I'm looking at 5 years down the line, I think we'll have some of the greatest people in this country. Thank you very much, and thanks to Ndungu. Thank you.
Thank you so much.